Hello everyone and welcome back to The Sims 4, and today we are going to be working on making the foxes from Ultimate Fox Simulator. We just started a new season with them, and I thought, well, what not better way to celebrate that than to go ahead and create our 4 foxes in The Sims 4 here. So we're going to be working on that. We're going to be creating Arion, Galahad, Eclipse, and Jedrek, and we're going to have all of them in here. And I'll put the pack up for download on the gallery. Hopefully, I've had some issues with it lately, so hopefully it does get up right away. If not, do make sure to check back, and I will put it up as soon as I have it available. But for now, I'll be doing my best to get it up as soon as I can. So we're going to go ahead and get started, though. And actually, The Sims 4 is really nice because it does provide a fox option. So if we look here, we can actually get the fox option, and it will... it'll give us a fox base, and we're going to play around with that from there. And this is actually pretty cool because there are domestic foxes. They do have foxes that are being domesticated, but because they haven't been domesticated for as long as dogs have, there tends to be a lot of behavioral issues still, and they're not pets for everyone. But there is starting to be a species of domestic fox that is now kind of, I guess, I don't know, would you say being developed? They're basically, they've bred foxes that have traits of domestication in them. So I would definitely not recommend getting a domestic fox unless you really know what you're doing, though. And you do have to check with your local laws, because in some places, like where I live, they are illegal. So they're still, for the most part, considered exotics. But as far as I understand, they do have some that are definitely a lot closer to domestic dogs than what a lot of exotic pets might be considered. Again, though, you really got to know what you're doing if you're going to get any sort of exotic pet, and in most cases I wouldn't recommend getting an exotic pet because a lot of them don't do very well. From what I understand, though, foxes are getting closer to what we think of with domestics, such as dogs or cats. So something that's kind of interesting that could be at some point in the future, maybe we will see domestic foxes being basically as commonplace as cats and dogs, but you never know. But anyway, the foxes we will be working with are going to be wild foxes, so we will go ahead and try and replicate their coats. Now, there will be some exceptions because the coats that we have in Ultimate Fox Simulator don't quite replicate the markings that I've always envisioned them with. So we will be playing around with some of that just a little bit, and they may not look exactly like you see them in game, but they will be pretty close to how I envision them, perhaps with a little bit more personality added. And I don't know if we look at the coats here, there are. So you can do white, you can actually do black and silver, which is really cool. And then there's kind of this one, which is also pretty neat. And so that's more of I think that's more of a gray fox coat. And then, of course, this is your traditional red fox coat. So that is pretty cool, and we probably will be utilizing several of those here as we try and make our foxes. So we're going to start off with Arion, so we'll go ahead and put her name in. And we may actually keep these traits because that does seem to describe her fairly well. She is an adult, she is female, and we can go ahead and adjust the sound. And so they actually have a specific fox sound because foxes do have a very distinctive call. If you've ever heard, foxes actually scream, and it can be very unnerving because it sounds very similar to a human scream in a lot of ways, and they use that scream for a variety of reasons, be it to attract a mate, or I think they can use it sometimes out of anger. There's a lot of reasons, and they make a lot of different vocalizations, but they don't actually, they don't bark the same way dogs do, so there are some fox-specific sounds here in The Sims 4 for them. And I think that's probably a pretty good sound for her here. And we'll go ahead, and she is in fact a fox, and I'm going to adjust her facial structure a little bit just to give her a bit more character. I'm not a huge fan of the way the default fox looks in this. I think they maybe need, like, I think they could have, I don't know how well they actually replicated the looks of a real fox. It's pretty good, but I think the facial structure is somewhat different in some ways. So I'm probably going to mess with that a little bit. I'm going to widen her muzzle just a bit. I don't want to make it too wide. And then I'm going to maybe adjust her nose slightly. Maybe bring her nose up a bit. And we'll adjust that just a little bit. And I don't want to make her muzzle too wide because foxes do tend to have very slender muzzles. But yeah, we'll go ahead and go with that, I think. And then I think overall that looks pretty good. I'm going to maybe make her a little bit skinnier because she is a fairly lean fox. And I think we'll go ahead and we're going to change her eye color because if you've seen her thumbnail image, you'll know that she does have blue eyes in the thumbnail. She has more of a patterning that you might see in a lot more domestic foxes. But I think it still is, the pattern I draw her with is kind of I drew it to be within the realm of possibility, but it also does take some traits that are more commonly seen in domestic foxes. So we're going to actually change her coloration because she is quite gray in color. She has maybe something like this, perhaps. And if we make that a little bit darker, actually I like this. That's getting pretty close, and then this one, I'm going to give her this kind of coloration. Well, actually maybe not. I will stick with the darker there, and she does have a very silvery sort of color. And I'm going to put these on this kind of silvery gray. And what I'm going to end up doing is we'll actually bring her into, the paint editor here. And I will take some of this darker coloration, this darker almost black, and we will paint that on. She's got a little bit more brown tinting in the thumbnail image that we have for her. I'm going to kind of go with a combination of that, and then with her, a kind of combination of the thumbnail looks versus what we actually see in game. So she's going to be a little bit more on the silvery side of things. And I kind of don't want to go that dark, actually. I'm maybe going to take more of this color. And maybe we'll just lighten her back a little bit. And then we'll kind of paint over this. And then we'll lighten her undercolors. And this area will not be quite as dark gray. And then I'm going to actually paint over her legs here. And then we'll give her kind of these nice little stockings. So they're not going to be quite as dark. And believe it or not, we tend to think of foxes as having the traditional kind of orange and black and white fox coloration, but they actually don't always. There are a lot of colors that a fox can be, and there's really quite a lot of variety. There's of course the black and white. There's a lot of different colorations that tend to get forgotten, and they can come in quite a variety of colors, just like how a lot of that has come through domestication, just like how you'll see with dogs. You'll see a lot of colors that may not actually show up in wolves. So it kind of just depends. I'm going to lighten this a little bit and maybe go a little bit. Actually, yeah, I think I will go a little bit more on the kind of almost a little bit more of the brown tint in there. And we'll do that. And so then I will take this color, I think, and we will make her a little bit more brownish, perhaps. And this will kind of be a darker brown, maybe. A little bit darker than that, even. We'll do something like that, I think. Trying to find the right colors is quite difficult in this because you can't really put in the color codes or anything, and so it can be a little bit trickier to actually get the correct colors. So we're just going to do the best that we can here. And we're going to keep that grayish look, but at the same time, we are going to add more of the brown in as well. And so this is going to be pretty close to how she'll turn out. And so you can see she does still have the grayish kind of coloration that she has in game, because the game doesn't give you a very detailed coat editor, but at the same time, she also has some of the more unique characteristics that you can see in her thumbnail images. And I'm going to have her roll over again so I can access the underside of her tail and then the inside of areas on her back legs there, so that we can get some of this color in there as well. There we go, and let's have her stand up, and I think that looks pretty good. Let's just bring that up a little bit higher there. And yeah, I think this is looking pretty close to how I imagine her. So she's got this nice kind of grayish with a little bit of brown mixed in. And then she has kind of the traditional feet, but she also has that darker tail. I'm going to actually bring up the darkness on her tail a little bit because she does have a quite, if you look at her in game, she has a black going pretty much all the way up the tail almost. And so we'll bring that up a little bit higher here, make that tail tip a little bit more pronounced. And we'll kind of connect that down here. There we go. So let's have her stand up, and you'll see she does have that long darker patch. I'm gonna not quite make it that big. I'm trying to balance it for a design that'll look cohesive. So give me a little bit as I play with that. And there we go. A little bit more on the bottom. I think we'll bring that down. Oops, not quite that far, but we'll do that. And I think that looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and leave her like this, and I think that's pretty accurate as to how I imagine her to look. In the game, she has a little bit more of that orangey reddish color on her, but I'm not going to show as much of that here because, again, that's one of the... There's not a lot of customization options in the game, and this is much closer to how I imagine her to look and at how she looks in the thumbnail. So we'll go ahead and stick with this. I'm going to go back out of paint mode, and we'll go ahead and add her traits. So we have stubborn, which I feel is accurate, and troublemaker, which again, those traits are in there kind of to represent the fact that even though there are domestic foxes, they're not the most... They're not the easiest to work with sometimes. They still have a lot of negative traits that haven't quite been bred out of them the way they have with dogs. Oh my goodness. But let's see what other trait we could give her. I think, I'm not going to say aggressive because I don't feel, she's territorial, yes, but she's not super aggressive. I don't know if she's vocal. Maybe smart. Maybe independent too, or a hunter. It's probably either smart or hunter, honestly, and I think I may give her hunter because, I mean, she does have to hunt for her survival in the actual, in her actual series. So we'll go ahead and stick with this for her looks, and next we're actually going to go ahead and add in Galahad. So let's go ahead, we'll add another pet, add another dog. And it gave us a smooth fox terrier. That's kind of cool. But we're going to actually add another fox. There we go. There we are. And this is going to be much closer to his looks. Galahad has the very traditional fox look, although I kind of want to play with the colors and see if we can maybe get away with something slightly just more brown so it's not quite as glaringly red. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and stick with that because he's not quite as bright orange as all that. And I think this is a little bit more of a naturalistic color coloration. Now, that foxes can actually be really bright in coloration, but I feel like Galahad isn't maybe quite so neon yellow and orange there. So we'll go ahead and we'll give him the name Galahad. And let's also, I'm going to adjust his facial features just a little bit again. I feel like he has pretty large ears, and so I'm going to give him some very, very large ears there. I'm going to give him a little bit of a fluffier face. Again, I'm going to widen the nose just a little bit, not too much there. And so you can see there is some facial differentiation between him and Arion. He has a little bit taller ears there. And we'll go ahead and I think stick with this. He's not quite as lean as she is, I imagine. I think he's a little bit more well-built. And we'll go ahead and let's see. I'm going to give him a little bit of this lower pitched cry here, I think. And not have him have such a high-pitched sound as Arion has. She has a little bit of a higher-pitched one. Yeah, I think that'll be good. And let's go ahead and choose his traits as well. He's going to be probably the easy one. He's a little bit more laid back and a little bit more goofy than she is. So I think I'm not going to give him troublemaker. I'm not even going to give him stubborn. I'm going to give him friendly because he's kind of just this goofy, happy-go-lucky fox who, maybe not even the best at fighting, but he's a sweet guy. So we'll go ahead and I think we'll give him playful. And what else do we want to give him? Let's see. I don't know if he would be jumpy. He might be jumpy. We know he's not a good fighter, and so I imagine he could be a little bit of, he could be a little bit jumpy. I think that could be kind of an interesting trait to give him. Either jumpy or maybe loyal. I don't know. Or possibly adventurous. I don't know, because he gets in over his head, but he does get out there, and he does jump into adventure. Let's see. I think I kind of want to give him, I think I'm going to give him the adventurous trait, because I feel like he throws himself into it heart and soul, even if he's not very good at fighting and such. I think that's a pretty good trait for him. Now, what we will do is we will take these guys and work with the genetics, but I don't expect they're really going to give us the results we have, because we've kind of just, there's not a good genetic system in Ultimate Fox Simulator. It's not quite the same because there's only 5 coats. And so we'll kind of just play around with it, and maybe we'll get a good look for Jedrek, but we're actually going to go with a customized look for Eclipse. So let's go ahead and play with genetics, and we'll create the child. Actually, that's pretty much perfect, because we'll see if we can get that with Arion too, because that's actually very much how I imagine Eclipse to look, because she, I think, has that dark coat, and we don't see it in game yet, but at some point we will be giving her a darker coat, and I actually think we'll go ahead and stick with this. And right now she has heterochromia. I don't know if we'll keep that. I'm gonna keep this. I'm gonna change her age. I'm gonna age her up, because we'll work with her in her adult form, because neither she nor Jedrek are exceptionally young anymore. Jedrek is even starting to be a young adult, and so I don't feel like he would have the same puppy look. And I kind of like this eye color she has here, so I think we'll probably stick with that. And then I'm gonna change her nose color to be black, and I think that'll be pretty good, but we'll give her some of that white there. And then let's look at some of the coloration. Do we want to lighten any of it? That should probably stay black. That, what if this is white? That gives her the white underside. That could be maybe a little bit lighter. And maybe we could give her a slight bit, well, I don't know. Actually, I kind of like that. I kind of do like that, actually, because it kind of lightens her coat. Now, a lot of the time, I think we'll go in with paint mode, because a lot of the time I don't think you'll see quite this much whiteness, but we'll give her a little bit around her muzzle here, and maybe a little patch on her chest. A lot of the time I don't think you'll see quite that much white on a black fox, and they can be black even in the wild, but it's pretty rare. It's definitely not the common thing, not the common experience. I'm just gonna give her a tiny little white strip like there. Sometimes you'll see that, and there's actually genetic reasons for that, but I'm not going to go into that. Depending on an animal's genetics, that white patch can actually happen in a lot of cases. It's called residual white. It basically is actually independent of genetics. Now, I'm not going to get into the how or the why, though, because that's pretty complicated thing, but I have been researching canine genetics lately, and foxes are not quite as closely related to dogs, but they are somewhat related to them. But they're actually vulpines, so they're a little bit more distantly than like a dog is related to a wolf, but they still are fairly similar genetically. Okay, let's have you go back to a standing position, and I think that's probably pretty good. Now she's really dark on the other side. I think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this, oops, not quite. I'm going to darken that down a little bit. And, oh, come on, now I'm not going to be able to get the right color. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And then if we darken that down, can we get a darker... I'm actually going to lighten it up for a little bit on the bottom here. No, actually I'm not going to do that, because this looks pretty good as it is, and I don't really want to mess that up. Maybe I will try to touch up around the face just a tiny bit, though. just a tiny bit. And, well, that's still kind of obviously different. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. I just don't want it to be super obvious distinction there. But yeah, I think that's pretty good overall. So now let's go back and work with her facial shape. And I'm still kind of debating whether I like her having the white muzzle or not, but we'll keep it for now. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to give her slightly larger ears, but maybe not quite as big as her father's, per se. And then I'm going to give her a little bit of a leaner body type again. And I think, yeah, I think this is pretty close to what we want to see from her. I think I will actually shrink down the white just a little bit more, though, on her face, because I think she may not have quite that much. She might just have a very minimal amount kind of on her muzzle there, and we'll kind of get rid of some of it on the chin a little bit. Can I see the underside of her face from this? I can. Yeah, I'm going to kind of get rid of a little bit of that. So there, she just has a very small amount of white in some places. And it's all through her body, it's all on her face and on her tail, but it's still just a very small amount. For the most part, she is very dark in color, and I feel like that's fitting because she is actually named after the solar eclipse that we had back in 2017, because that's the day she was born. So I feel like it's very fitting for her to be a very, very dark colored fox, and I think that will be pretty cool. So let's go ahead and we will name her Eclipse. There we go, she is an adult. And I'm going to give her a somewhat high-pitched one again. And then we'll go ahead and pick traits. I think I'm going to label her smart. I feel like she's a little bit more reserved and a little bit more... She stands back a little bit more and is strategic and cunning, whereas even Arion tends to rush in a little bit more just because they're a little bit different strategy-wise. I feel like Eclipse is going to be a little bit more naturally cautious and less inclined to just rush into things, whereas Arion is very just jumping in and taking stuff out and kind of just diving in head first. I think I'm going to go ahead and give her the Hunter trait as well. And possibly Independent. I think I'm going to go ahead and give her the Independent trait because she is probably about to go off on her own, and so she'll have to be a little bit independent, and she'll have to be ready to make her own way in the world here. So I feel like that's a pretty good look for her. I really like that. So let's go ahead and we will go ahead and play with genetics again, and that's actually really cute. But we're not going to look at Eclipse's genetics. We're going to look at Arion, and we're going to look at Galahad. And a white fox, that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and do adult, though. And we're going to randomize a sun. That is actually such a cool pattern. I really like that pattern. It's not what we're going to use. Well, maybe it's kind of what we're going to use. Actually, maybe we will use that. That is the same pattern as both of them have, but with different coloration. I think we will go with that. And, yeah, we'll go ahead and keep this, and this will be Jedrek. And let's play with his coloration a little bit, because he does have this gray, and then he also has some of the red kind of mixed in on, maybe on ears, or maybe we want to do like a darker brown. Maybe we'll do like a dark chocolatey brown kind of color. And, because this is kind of just a more modeled version of the red coat from what I've seen. That's way too much. Oops, I didn't actually select a different thing. So that would give him more of the red. Maybe. Because I don't know if I'm gonna... It's gonna be really hard to actually replicate that, so I'm kind of gonna just try to do as much of a mixture as I can, and I think this will be a little bit lighter in color. Maybe not that shade, though. Maybe not that shade either. That's too light. That's actually, I really like that look. That doesn't, I don't know, that really fits him very well. But, actually maybe on that we'll keep it darker. This, that might work. And then I'm gonna try and maybe make this a little bit more the orangey kind of color. He is very light though. Would he be as light as all this? Maybe. I'm gonna also give him a black nose while I'm thinking about it, because I don't think he has a light colored nose. He doesn't in the picture, and I can't really envision him with one. And that will, of course, change the options. So he definitely has very dark feet, and the very dark ear tips. I think let's take this. This might be a little bit on the lighter side. Maybe we'll go, yeah, we'll go with something like that. And then this is what's affecting the back there. I might, well, maybe mix some of the lighter kind of orangey colors in, maybe on the bottom here for one, and then maybe we can do something in paint mode. I'm not very good with the paint mode yet, but if we take this orange and we make the brush really big and we turn down the opacity, maybe we can kind of just brush in some of this kind of orangey look like that. Maybe. I'm not so sure though. Actually, I think what we'll do is I'm going to turn this back to that very bright orange, and then we'll kind of keep that like that. And then we'll go back to paint mode, and what I'm going to do is start brushing this in on top. Let's make this large. Actually, we'll make this one large. And I'm going to start brushing some of this in. Actually, I want to make it non-symmetrical too for him, because I think it'll look a little better if it's not symmetrical. And we'll kind of brush some of this in a little bit randomly. And we'll start, because he kind of has just this mottled sort of feel going on. And he's definitely got the orange in there. And then we can maybe darken it somewhat. In fact, maybe we'll get some of this. Or is there one that's just very slightly? Yeah. And we can kind of, let's turn this up just a little bit. We'll kind of put some of this into, I'm trying my best to replicate kind of this mottled look that we see on him in game. And I'm not sure I'm doing a very good job, but we're going to try our best. And I tend to put a little bit darker down the back there, just because that tends to look a little better than just having it be all super light. And we'll come through and erase off the dark parts. Actually, maybe we'll just overlay the dark parts. And then, I'm really not sure I like that too much. I think we're going to just go with a little bit less of, a conventional one. Is there a way to clear everything? Yeah, okay. I think we're just going to go with a little bit less of a conventional look for him. And we'll try to just kind of work with the colors here, and we'll kind of give him more of a little bit of a grayish look. He's kind of going to look more like Arion, and maybe we will add some of the more orangey colors in as we work here. So he'll have a little bit more of this orange red on him in some places. Is there a color that we can get that's not quite as, yeah, maybe we'll go with, you know what, we'll go with this very light gray, because overall that is pretty similar. And then I'm honestly not going to worry too much about specifically the orangey red, because the biggest part about him is the fact that he has kind of this much lighter color. He's kind of got a silvery look to him, and this will still distinguish him quite a bit from Arion, who's got a lot of lighter colors, or she's got a lot of the darker colors, and she's a little bit darker in coloration than him generally. But yeah, and I'm going to give him a little bit of this shorter muzzle here because he is young, and that could sometimes help with that. And we'll also make his eyes just a little bit bigger, because again, that'll help him seem just a little bit younger. We'll bring his ears up slightly, and he'll be a little bit on the skinnier side than that. And I think, yeah, I think for the most part that looks pretty good. It doesn't quite have as much of the mottled look as he does in the game, but again, that's going to be really hard to achieve in this. So we'll kind of just leave him a little bit simplified here, I think. And he will get that nice white tail tip, and he has, of course, the black stockings, which is a big part of his looks. And then let's go ahead, he's male. Let's give him a little bit, yeah, that sounds good, a little bit of the deeper, just to kind of give him some vocal distinguishing. And then for his traits, I feel like he's still pretty friendly. He is still quite young, so he's maybe not quite as experienced and not quite as wary as some of the other foxes maybe. And then probably playful because he's still young. And then we'll say he's a bit of a troublemaker because he still is a young fox, so he he might have a bit of that in him yet, and he might still be a bit of a silly one. And I think that'll be pretty good. And so we should have all the relationships set as well. Is Galahad set to female? Oh boy. That's not supposed to happen. There we go. That's much better. But yeah, we'll make sure we have all of that set up. So all the relationships seem to be set properly now. And I think, let's go ahead and look through them one last time. So here we have Arion, and she does have a little bit more of a unique looking coat. She also has that mask, which I don't know how much that is seen. That's kind of a little bit of stylization. And again, she does have somewhat more of the domestic fox look in her, whereas you won't see a lot of these colors naturally in the wild. A lot of them have been brought out through breeding, and so you would be very uncommon to see a fox like this. I think, though, when I was looking at the different color patterns, I think this is something that could occur very rarely, or something like this, kind of this lighter coloration. I try not to go too much into the realm of what's only seen in domestics, but this, again, would be very uncommon. You definitely much more see something like Galahad here, who has the very traditional red fox look, and even more of what Eclipse might have. This is seen in the wild, but again, it is very uncommon, so yeah. But yeah, so here we have Arion, and she has the stubborn, troublemaker, and hunter traits, and this is how she looks. And then we have Galahad, who is friendly, he is playful, and he is adventurous, and this is how he looks. And he has that very traditional fox look. And then Eclipse, who is smart, a hunter, and independent, and here's how she looks, and she has a lot of that nice white on her. So here is how she looks, and again, this does not reflect her current look in-game, but we haven't gotten her to the level where we'll be able to unlock this coat for her, so this is, again, eventually what I would like to see her look like. So a little bit of a spoiler, but yeah, this is eventually what I'm thinking she'll probably look like. She'll have more of this coat as compared to right now. She looks a lot more like Galahad does. And then we have Jedrek, who is pretty light in colored. He's not quite as mottled as he is in game, but he still has that much lighter coloration. And then he is friendly, he is playful, and he is a troublemaker. So this pack will be up for download as soon as I can get it up. Like I said, I have had some trouble with the gallery recently, so it might not be right away, but it'll be as soon as I can get it up. And if it's not up right away, just keep an eye out, and keep your eyes out, and I will comment and let you guys know when it is up, as well as putting in the video description. But anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode here for today. If you guys have not seen the new season of Ultimate Fox Simulator, make sure that you go and check that out. You will see a link to it in the end screen at the end of all this, and make sure to catch the first season as well if you missed that. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. But until then, this is Jay, over and out.